Hey everybody, welcome to Precision Impact. My name is Dirk, and on today's segment, we're on location. We've recently got a couple of requests from some viewers to show you a little bit how to use slugs. Now, I've decided to go off the tee a little bit, specifically because for those athletes, those young baseball players who might not always have access to a pitching machine or someone soft tossing or overhanding, tee work is the absolute basic and most important fundamentals when it comes to hitting. So today we're going to be showing you guys a little bit about how to use your leather baseballs, your 5-ounce leather baseballs, in conjunction with your 15-ounce slugs. Now, something I usually always start with my athletes is keep it really nice and simple off a tee. We're just looking for smooth, relaxed contact, trying to drive it to the back of the cage. We're using our 5-ounce leather baseballs to start for our very first round. We're just looking for something smooth, fluid, very relaxed, good contact, and we're trying to hit that ball as square as we can. I try to align the tee sort of in the back outside corner. I want athletes sort of hitting it a little bit back in their stance. What you'll notice as well, if you give young baseball players the option to set up however they like, you'll notice one consistent thing. They're gonna stand as far back away from the ball and the tee as possible. They're gonna start loading back like this, and they're gonna try and launch that ball as high as they can. What I try and do is try to paint a picture for these young athletes. I want them to crowd the plate a little bit or to get a little bit uncomfortable in their stance. Their normal stance is going to be extremely comfort. It's going to be in their comfort zone. What I really want them to do is get out of their comfort zone a little bit on their tee and maybe even crowd the plate, which is going to force them to stay inside on the baseball. Something I'm looking for to avoid is for them, especially on a tee, is to come around the baseball and to be rolling over. On a tee, it's stationary, it's static. I want them to be able to stay on the inside of the baseball as often as possible, drive it to the back of the cage, right down the middle, or staying inside even more so and driving it to the opposite side of the field. So placement of the tee is going to be really crucial, as well as making sure they're set up properly. Challenge them a little bit. For those athletes that have a pretty good swing, they're going to be already in a bit of an awkward, uncomfortable position, but they're just capable of staying inside on the baseball. So again, for most kids, they're going to be way back here trying to dip and lift a little bit like that. We don't want to avoid that. We want them to stay square with the baseball, making contact with their hands in front of the barrel. A lot of kids you'll see trying to get that barrel out extended in front of their hands. We want to try and get away from that, especially on a tee, right? We want our hands to stay out in front of our barrel. It's something very simple that if you keep your cues really simple for kids to understand, for players to understand, instead of over coaching, keep it simple. Just remind them what they want to do. Drive it to the back of the screen. If they roll over, they'll realize they're doing something wrong and maybe facilitate a minor instruction, but for the most part, let them be ball players. Let them work things out on their own. If they're really struggling, feel the need to insert yourself, go ahead. But for the most part, sit back and teach them how to read the feedback the tee is giving them. That's why the tee is so valuable, because you don't necessarily need a lot of coaches, or any coaches for that matter, to be around to get some quality work in, as well as some really good quality feedback. Listen and watch and see what the ball is doing so that you can make an adjustment on your own, because in a real game, that's what's going to happen. You don't have a coach in your ear at the plate in between pitches. Right? You've got to be your own best coach, kind of thing like that. So right now, right here on the tee is where it starts to be able to be a good coach on your own. So again, we're going to set up as comfortable as we can, but still make it challenging. We're going to take our time. I'm going to visualize what I want to do. I'm going to try and stay inside the baseball, make good, clean, quality contact, drive it to the back of the cage, if not, maybe a bit to the opposite side of the field. So from here, we're relaxed, visualizing what I want to do, and drive. Our first round is going to be strictly baseballs, right? We want to get a good light feel. We want to warm up, especially if we haven't had an extensive warm up. I see too many kids running straight into the cage. For that reason, we want to make sure we can cater to all athletes and just take it really relaxed for this first round. Looking for the back of the screen. Trying to stay as balanced as we can. Stay inside the baseball. Round one will usually be about 5 baseballs per athlete if we're dealing with 4, 5, 6 athletes, preferably smaller numbers like 3 or 4. Each athlete will get about 5 leather baseballs. That'll be round one. Depending on how they've swung it, we might do a second round with leather baseballs. Too many times you'll see a lot of kids rush, rush, rush. They'll get up there as quick as you put the ball on the tee or as quick as they put the ball on the tee. They're already back there ready to rifle fire. It's not a race. Remind them that this is not a race. We're not trying to hit as many as humanly possible. We're trying to stay relaxed. We're trying to visualize. Make them have a bit of a routine in between, whether it's tapping that bat to the back of the heel or back of the toe, maybe visualizing what they want to see, maybe visualizing a picture. It's important that they take their time. Now, it's obviously we don't tell them taking a minute between each swing, but we want something to reset them. If they have had a bad swing, the ball didn't go where they wanted to, make sure that they can reset, which is what they should be doing at the plate. If they have a bad swing, they complete swing and miss, or maybe it was a called strike, they should have some kind of routine where they can reset. Think about their approach, get back into the box, and get back to work. No different than here. Even if I have 4 or 5 athletes in a group, I want to make sure that they're taking their time in between each swing, whether they're grabbing their own baseball or maybe the next guy in the line's putting it up for them. I want them to visualize they're at the plate, they're going through their motion, they're visualizing everything they want to do, they know what they're working on in this particular swing, and they're going after it. And when kids can start taking something as simple as a tee very serious, it's amazing what kind of improvements you'll see. Again, the fundamentals are the key to success. Not mastering how to hit cage bombs from somebody throwing really firm, but it's something as simple as a ball standing still. When you can surgically hit this ball wherever you want, you're going to notice that suddenly front toss becomes a little bit easier. You're going to be able to get those hands inside the baseball a little bit better rather than getting around that baseball. Suddenly, overhand BP is going to get a lot easier, and then suddenly transitioning to a guy throwing at you, you're going to feel confident. You're going to have a game plan. You're going to have the skills to be able to do just about anything you want. After our first round of, whether it be 5 baseballs, maybe 2 rounds of 5 leather baseballs, depending on what you're trying to accomplish in this specific situation, you might go to 3 leather baseballs to 2 heavy ones. But for today, what I normally do is I'll start off heavy, because the end result is how are they hitting a leather baseball, not necessarily how is it that they're hitting them. We can still get a lot of feedback from our slugs, but at the same time, I want this to create a stimulus so that the leather baseballs become a little bit lighter. So now we're going to transition into hitting off of our 15-ounce slugs. And then we're going to do 3 slugs to 2 baseballs. As we go through our 3rd or 4th round, we're going to eventually transition off less slugs and more baseballs, hoping to close that gap and have them transfer the power that they're hitting a slug with over into their leather baseball. So now, after round 1 of 5 leather baseballs, maybe 2 rounds, we're going to transition into 3 swings with our slugs. Now, after 3 slugs, we're going to switch over to 2 leather baseballs. Now, I immediately felt the difference, noticeable difference. Obviously, 3 times the weight of a leather baseball. But now what I'm hoping to do is, after feeling that noticeable heavier swing and the contact, hopefully you notice a more explosive contact with my bat and the ball. And that's what we're going for. You should feel as well as see and notice a difference from when we've just hit 3 to now our 2 leather baseballs we're going to. So after those 2, I noticed and felt a noticeable difference once I made contact, noticeably, just from 3. Now imagine a round of 5 slugs, which you can incorporate quite easily after 1 round and then transition and slowly weed off. There's a million different variations you can have between baseballs and slugs, depending on what it is you're trying to achieve. Something you should keep in mind as well is they are noticeably heavier. With younger kids, they're gonna need to put more intent, more effort, more force into hitting them properly. Too many times I see young kids come up, whether it be front toss or off the tee, and they're just putting a really lackadaisical swing into it. We should be gassed after hitting a round of 5, maybe especially a round of 3 and 2, no matter what variation you're having here, you should be putting a lot of intent, a lot of focus, a lot of effort into what you're doing here. Too many times I've seen kids go through rounds of 5 or multiple rounds and they're just completely fine. There should be some intent in here. Much like playing a game of catch, you shouldn't be completely fine after a game of catch. You should be putting that effort in. You should be noticing some of the changes. You should be putting some intent and effort into whether it be a long toss, a short pen, a flat ground pen, or anything. intent is where you're going to see some of these results. So something that I try to navigate my athletes towards is simply effort. Put some effort, put some force behind hitting these baseballs, and that alone will yield a pretty good result. Force them to work harder, force them to swing harder, force them to make better contact, force them to hit the back of the cage. Rather than getting too mechanical, sort of direct them as to what it is you want them to do. So for this drill, it might be make really good contact, make sure it gets to the back of the net, make sure you're hitting it square, make sure it's, no matter what it is, just kind of guide them into what you want to see them do rather than micromanage their every single movement. There's a time and a place for mechanics. It might not necessarily be with slugs. Once their swing is down to where you want it to, we can start incorporating a tool like this. Also, something you want to keep in mind is too many times you'll see kids come up to a slug and completely change their swing knowing it's heavier. Remind them to keep their swing consistent. Don't let them change their swing from leather baseballs to slugs. It should stay the same. That's the key in order to get the transfer from a heavy baseball over into their 5-ounce leather baseball, is to keep things consistent, keep their swing consistent. Don't let them change. Don't let them do something completely different just because there's a slug on the tee. Try and remind them that it's the same. You're just going to notice a bit of a different contact once we hit. So again, sometimes we'll go 3 here. For round 2, we might go 3 again, depending on how they did. If they're really catching on quite well, maybe you can increase the amount of slugs, decrease the amount of baseballs. If we're closer to a game time, maybe we want to incorporate more baseballs and just use this lightly as a stimulus. Maybe 1 out of every 5, maybe 2 out of every 5, maybe only 2 rounds where we incorporate these and then going straight back to our baseballs. Use it sparingly, use it wisely, and experiment a little bit about what you can yield the best result in. Every athlete's going to be different. Every team's going to be different. Even how you coach these are going to change the effect of how they're used. So be sure that you know how you can get the best results out of these by working with your athletes on a regular basis, by getting some feedback from them, as well as watching what they're doing and not just watching their mechanics, but watching the flight of the ball. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding this video or some ideas for some future videos, leave a comment down below. Thanks.